This is an observed active tornado in South Georgia right now, and there it is. This correlation coefficient.
Our WCTV First Alert weather team was on top of Sunday's severe storms, tracking a then suspected tornado as it moved through Mitchell County. Our meteorologist Cameron Aaron was there with the National Weather Service yesterday as they surveyed the damage. The NWS later confirming an EF1 tornado did touch down in the area of Pebble City. So how do meteorologists determine the strength of a tornado? Just by looking at the damage? The NWS says it has technology that helps.
And there's a tool that we have, it's a software tool that we have called the DAD. And in this DAD, it has a lot of damage indicators that we can utilize that will help us at least give us a baseline of the wind speeds of what this tornado did.
Officials say luckily no one was hurt in the South Georgia as the same storm killed over 40 people across the nation, leaving more than 130,000 power outages.
Yeah, one of the questions that we get the most is usually like if there are tornadoes and things, what category, how strong? And it doesn't work the same as with a hurricane where you're measuring wind speeds and then we're telling you the category of the storm. When it comes to a tornado, you really can't tell how strong it was until after, and then you go and survey the damage. They use drones now, use helicopters, and you get up, look, and you see what the pattern for the damage is and see what kind of structure damaged, and then you estimate what the winds are based on what was all messed up.
And that's also too, because I think you hear a lot of times after the tornadoes, I think if you think back to the May 10th tornadoes,
Right.
whenever they had a couple areas they were looking at the winds as well, right? Too, sometimes people think they may have had a tornado in their area, but whenever the NWS crew can come out, they can see the way the trees fell, which is really interesting.
You know, the pattern, depending on how symmetrical it is, how radial it is, how linear it is, all those fancy
There's
words.
a lot of things that go into it.
But really, when it comes to tornadoes and damage, you really have to wait until it's done, then you survey, and then based on the patterns and the types of structures that were damaged, that's how you assess what it is. So it's a big process, is really what it is, but we prefer not to have them ever.
Yes.
But when they do, that's how we come up with those conclusions. Okay, there you go. All right, so in the aftermath of the storms, neighbors in Pebble City having to clean up. The Pebble City Baptist Church with minor damage, but just 100 yards away, the community center and volunteer fire department were destroyed. Fire Chief Michael Jones unsure about the fire engine's condition.
Right now, we're still looking at damages. There was nobody injured. Everybody was safe. We're glad that happened, and we're still moving forward and still checking the areas out and looking for anything that we may have missed.
And while the Pebble City Fire Department is currently out of commission, there are other fire departments within a 5-mile radius of the city. Officials say they're waiting to hear from their insurance provider before continuing with cleanup.
That's another thing too, though, that you kind of see afterwards too, is one area may get hit by a tornado, right? But across the street,
absolutely,
it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
That's the thing I think you see often, because they have a tendency to.
And they're usually isolated, and it's in certain areas. And around here, they typically don't run miles and miles and miles long. Like sometimes you think of the tornadoes that we see on the news in places like Oklahoma and Kansas and the middle of the country. We have those major outbreaks when those really long distance and long duration tornadoes. We don't typically have those. Usually we have the much smaller and quicker ones. So it's isolated spots that get impacted.
Yeah. And new this morning.